Enjoy the show.
Okay, this meeting of the Oyster River Cooperative School District Board will come to order. Just a sense of the sequence of events for this public budget bond hearing. I'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing on Article 3. We'll have a presentation by the administration, then public comment. We'll close the public hearing on Article 3, then we'll have a motion to have a public hearing on the proposed budget, go through the same process, and then we'll close that public hearing. Then there'll be any school board action and then the adjournment after that. So that's the sequence. So could I have a motion to go into public hearing on Article 3? Denise?
I'll make a motion to go into public hearing on Article 3.
Moved by Denise, seconded by Al. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we're in public hearing. I'm not sure who's doing the presentation, but I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as we enter tonight, I think it's important to just talk about what a public hearing is. It's an opportunity for the public to provide the board comments. The board can incorporate those comments later and when they're meeting as a regular board. During this time, they're listeners. So I think it's important to introduce the board. And Tom, would you like to start? And we'll just go down.
Tom Newkirk.
Al Holland.
Denise Day.
Maria Barth.
Sarah Farwell.
Dan Klein.
So this public hearing on Article 3 is a bond hearing, and the Assistant Superintendent Allen and our Athletic Director Corey Parker will come to the podium and they'll talk at length about Article 3, and then we'll entertain questions.
Two more. There we go. Would you like to do it? Okay. Warrant Article 3. Article 3, shall the district raise and appropriate the sum of $1.9 million for the renovation and construction of athletic fields and a track at Oyster River High School, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $1.5 million of bonds or notes to be paid over a 10-year period in accordance with the provisions of Municipal Finance Act, RSA Chapter 33, and to authorize the school board to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes, in addition to raise and appropriate the sum of $22,419 for the first year's principal and interest payment on the bonds or notes, and up to $400,000 to come from the year-end undesignated fund surplus. The school board recommends this appropriation, and a 3/5 ballot vote is required. And we're going to jump into a presentation on the explanation of this warrant article, so I'm going to skip over this slide, which will be included in the materials that you have here tonight. To just start out, the athletic fields project hopefully is familiar to many of you. It has been an issue in this district for quite some time. Last year, it was probably the closest we came to realizing this goal. It's important that people understand that this is a comprehensive athletic fields upgrades project. It's important that people understand that the investment here will get us a turf rectangular field where the varsity field currently stands, an all-weather track around it, fencing around the facility, the reconfiguration of both our baseball and softball fields so that every single team that plays outside will experience a major improvement in the quality of the facilities they have to play on. Important that people understand that. Now, I'm going to just give you a quick history. This is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I got involved in it initially with my dear friend back there, John Parsons, back in 1997 when we began to work to raise awareness in the community as they were planning the construction of Oyster River High School, or a renovation of Oyster River High School, and we were trying to get the athletic field upgrade to be a part of the footprint of that project. Unfortunately, we're not successful in doing that, so we then created the Friends of Oyster River Track as an organization dedicated to raising the funds to build a track. And at that point in 1998, The district voted to, we were successful in getting a warrant article placed, and the district did create a trust fund specifically to install an all-weather track. Through the efforts of a number of private individuals, we were successful in getting to the goal of $300,000, which in 2003 was the amount of money necessary to install an all-weather track at Oyster River High School. It became very readily obvious, though, at that time that much more was needed on our athletic fields here at Oyster River High School. So over the period from 1999 to 2004, a variety of votes took place. Various amounts of money in the unexpended fund balance at the end of the year were deposited in the account, and that combined with all of the private donations and fundraising efforts, we got, like I say, got to the $300,000. So that's part of the funding that would go towards this project. Budget times became fairly hard during the 2000s, and so the athletic fields project got kind of backburnered. The board, in its wisdom, in 2012 decided it was time to kind of reinitiate this effort because the issues were becoming greater and greater. When I say the issues, the level of use and student interest and community interest in using these facilities has gotten greater and greater. Lots of programs have started during that time. One that is really a wonderful program, but a high-impact program, is lacrosse. When our athletic fields were first built, lacrosse was not a sport in this community, and therefore there was not a lot of use there. But now we have a very thriving lacrosse program with hundreds of kids playing, and that does have a big impact on our field. So we really began to look at the issue of the quality of our fields and our ability to sustain it, and to be able to provide a safe and good opportunity for our students to be able to participate. So again, 2012, the board re-engaged this effort. As a result of that effort, a committee was formed, and last year, 2015, a warrant article was put forward, which is a very similar project to what you're going to see today, with a couple of changes to it that proposed a full upgrade. And on the plus side, we got 56% of the voters of our community to vote in favor of this project. The downside was, in order to pass a bond, you need to get 60%. So we had a majority of people in the community who wanted it. However, we needed 60% and didn't quite get there. To us, that said, it's popular enough. If we go back and take a look at some of the issues that we think were holding us up, retool the project, that will result, hopefully, in the positive response that we're looking for. So in terms of what is different about this proposal versus the last one, first and foremost, a committee was formed that was representatives from all different community groups to take a look at the issue. We looked at the issue of the funding of it. We looked at how we communicated to the community about the project, and also looked at some of the environmental concerns or the health concerns related to the infill in the athletic fields. Out of that committee came one very significant recommendation, which we feel is key to hopefully the passage of this project, is to replace the crumb rubber infill that was originally planned to be a part of this project with an alternative crumb rubber. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the issue, last year NBC News ran a few stories and a number of other media outlets relating to health concerns relating to crumb rubber. Crumb rubber is the product used as the infill in the turf that gives it that cushion. Crumb rubber is made from ground-up tires, and there was concern that it was a carcinogen. Although we had a significant debate on it, we arrived at the conclusion that regardless of whether the scientific evidence pointed one way or another, it was worthy of us changing our material. And as a committee, we came to consensus around a product called EPDM, which Corey will talk about in just a minute, kind of explain what that is and why it's better for this project. The other component that changed is we were able to look at other means of funding. Last year, the bond request was for 1.7. This year, it's a 1.5. So we've reduced the amount of borrowing by about 15%. So we feel that those two things, reducing the bonding reduces the tax impact, and adding in the EPDM eliminates the concern about the infill. So I'm going to turn it over to Corey, who's going to kind of run through the broad picture of what the project is.
Great. So we felt it would be best to go about the project and kind of take a minute to talk about each aspect of this property so that we can really show that, to Todd's point earlier, this is a comprehensive athletic project for all our programs here at the high school, middle school, and the community. I'd like to start with the all-weather track, which is the oval around the green rectangle in the diagram. This is obviously something that this district is in need of immediately. It's not a matter of comparison of our current state. A track is something that we do not currently have in this district and have never had in this district. Considering we have over 100 middle school track and cross-country athletes, and certainly at the high school we have a significant amount of the student population participating in this sport, it is vital to have a track and field facility at a high school, as again, we are one of few high schools that across the state that does not have that. And over the past couple of years, we've got a lot of feedback that we're able to use the UNH facility. And although they're in construction right now, that has been true at times over the course of our programs here at Oyster River. However, with that great opportunity comes a concession on our part. One, the financial aspect of it, which is considerable when you consider we're spending about $4,000 a year in rentals over at UNH. And two is, and this is completely understandable, UNH needs to take care of their own program first. And so we are left with not the best advantageous times for practices, whether it be 7 p.m. on a Tuesday or potentially the offering of a 7 a.m. on a Saturday to utilize that facility. And for obvious reasons, UNH's programs are flourishing, they're continually growing. The time availability for those facilities is coming less and less available to outside groups because of UNH's demand. So being able to provide this opportunity in our backyard greatly enhances not only our program here at the high school, but the middle school who would use this on a daily basis. Oyster River Youth Association, that has about 50 kids participating in their track program, would also have a tremendous opportunity in utilizing our track. And as a community, we would be able to finally host events in our track and field program, which is something we are dependent on other programs. We have a lovely auditorium that we host many plays non-specific to Oyster River, basketball tournaments that we've hosted, hockey tournaments at the Whittemore Center. To be able to do that in track and field is a tremendous opportunity for our athletic programs to showcase our facility across the state. Another side of it that is a great advantage that is not athletic specific, but is our physical education programs. Being able to utilize a track and field for a physical education class of 50 to 60 kids is an unbelievably great opportunity to promote fitness in a safe way and promote it in a consistent way across the board with all our students. Currently, we do a walk-jog unit here at the high school that takes part in the fall where they are walking and jogging across neighboring roads and in the community and sync back here to the high school. Being able to do this on our own track here at the high school is a tremendous advantage for classroom management, safety, and truly being able to promote track to those kids, and again, being able to do it here. The other side of that, obviously, is to the community. You know, every morning, I'm sure a lot of the staff members witness a great deal of individuals running on Baghdad or side roads around here. We have a phenomenal running community here in Durham and neighboring towns. Being able to have that here at the high school for individuals, for adults and kids and senior citizens to be able to utilize this track is a tremendous opportunity because, again, it goes back to the consistent, safe environment. You don't have to worry about uneven pavement or erratic drivers. You know what you get when you have a track, and so that's a tremendous opportunity, not just for the student body, but the entire community. Inside that track would be the artificial turf field that Todd was talking about. In our current state, outside, we do have a rectangular grass field currently where the same field would be positioned here. However, if you've seen our facility or you've been able to take a Google topograph look of it, to Todd's point earlier, it is severely overused. And because of that, there is no resting period with our field because our footprint of our back property for all our athletic teams is so small, we don't have space to rotate a field. And if you're familiar with any youth organizations or larger high schools, generally they'll have 1 or 2 rectangular fields that they take off a season. So if it's a soccer field, they'll take the spring off to hydroseed it, to aerate it, to make it ready to have a 6-month growth period before they actually have to step back on that field. We don't have that luxury here, which is a blessing and a curse, because we provide so many athletic opportunities after school that over 70% of our kids take advantage of. Because of that, we need to utilize this field every season. So in the fall, it is used from soccer season all the way up to early November, and then the lacrosse programs are trying to get on that same rectangle for their games as early as April 15th. So being able to put down an artificial turf field eliminates any need for use of pesticides, herbicides, watering, mowing, and big thing is overusage. The beauty of the artificial turf fields is why you see it so growing so fast, especially across the street, is you're trying to keep up with the demand of usage and the demand of wear and tear on a field. Much like your backyard, if you put a chair in a grass and you leave it there for a week, you're going to burn what's underneath it. It's no different with a soccer field or a lacrosse field, because those areas are, again, heavily used, including PE classes. We're not able to provide a field that I personally am proud of to the outside teams that are coming to our school, and credit our facility department in doing everything in their power to make those fields as best as playable on a given basis. But it takes a lot. It takes roughly $4,000 to $5,000 in laying sod. It takes watering it throughout the summer months. It takes literally closing the field from approximately Memorial Day to our first game right around Labor Day. You know, that's a tremendous disadvantage for a school of our size, with our not only success but commitment and being a part of a team and providing opportunities, to have to close approximately 1/3 of our athletic facilities all summer long in hopes of growing grass back, in hopes of just simply, by not using it, putting it in a state that we can be proud of for that first game right around Labor Day. So again, the wear and tear is significant. Similar to renting of the track, we are also faced with a lot of scenarios where we have to rent turf fields, whether it be at UNH, or we've also reached out to Portsmouth before for their turf field, to provide games that we cannot simply host because of damage, whether it be from rain or simply the field being unplayable. Because that facility was built in the 60s with a lot of the actual ground being from the creation of Route 4, it is not really in an ideal state of soil for the athletic growth of grass. Having said that, it is also not ideal for runoffs by any means, and so we are challenged when we get a few days of rain, whether it be in the fall or the spring, whereas a typical rain may shut you down for a day. We're faced in some cases where it shuts our field down for 3 days, because it's simply not draining, and we have to hope for sun and wind to dry the field. So that's a tremendous disadvantage, and certainly in the later weeks of the season, we are forced to have to rent out outdoor facilities on turf fields to be able to provide those games at the varsity level to conclude our seasons. That runs to about $3,000 a year when we do that. To put in context, to rent a turf field over at UNH, it's about $185 an hour to do so. The track's $110 an hour to do so. So the need, when we have the need for those facilities, they've been great in working with us within their schedule. Having said that, it does have a cost. And to not be able to play a home game, unfortunately, over the past couple of years, we've had to move senior days to turf fields over at UNH, which the kids didn't mind because they enjoy playing on a turf field, but it really kind of loses its cachet and feel of having your senior day not be at your high school field that you've been on for 4 years. So that's a tremendous disadvantage currently that we have. With the turf field, again, we don't have to close it. I compare, in talking with a lot of the community members, the use of our gymnasium and auditorium would be a very similar environment to a turf field, because the artificial turf and the rubbers require very minimal maintenance, but the wear and tear of the facility is very minimal. over a 10-year period. And so because of that, you're able to use the facility, jokingly, 24/7. Now, clearly, we're not going to use it 24/7, but the reality of it is that is a possibility to do so. And so a comparison I make to Oyster River Youth Association is generally when we're not in the gymnasium, they're in the gymnasium. Long and short, bouncing a basketball is not hurting the effects of the floor. It's not wear and tear of the floor. The turf field would be the same way. So whether it's Oyster River Youth, certainly the middle school would play a huge role in utilizing this facility, or any other community group, being able to utilize that turf field is a tremendous advantage from what our current state is. Because again, with rain, you're able to work around it because of the drainage. Todd talked initially on the actual infill, which was a hot topic last year around this time. I want to credit the school board for creating the ad hoc committee and recognizing getting over 50% of the vote for this to do a little more digging. We were lucky enough to get a couple community members here in town that were a part of that ad hoc committee. And the infill of the product for the artificial turf field was the key thing on that list of charges from the superintendent and the school board. We examined multiple infill options. We looked at an organic coconut husk option. We looked at 3 different man-made polymers. The EPDM is essentially a man-made polymer that is very consistent and comparable to the tire crumb rubber playing surface. The big difference is it's not from a tire. It lacks the carcinogen concern with a lot of people that are expressing across the nation. But as far as playing surface goes, it is extremely comparable and been tested exactly that way. We were lucky enough to reach out to 7 different turf fields in greater Boston and in this area, and actually examined the fields, and went to the fields in August to see how hot they were on a sunny day, how they kicked with a soccer ball, how much kicked up when you kicked it. We kind of jogged around on it. I wouldn't say we ran on it, but we definitely jogged around on it to test the viability and spoke with the groundskeepers on the product. And we got raving reviews about the EPDM product that was just put in at Groton School. And so I really want to credit the committee for really investing time and energy in this and learning a lot about the product. So we feel extremely confident about the EPDM infill, which is a few dollars more in the landscape of the entire product, but I think it's our best bang for our buck in providing a safe alternative for the infill. The third piece of this project, which I think is somewhat getting overlooked, and it certainly shouldn't, and I know with these programs it's not, because this is really the comprehensive portion of this project. And because there's a lot of land work that needs to be done to create the track and for the drainage for the artificial turf field, we have to reconfigure our current state of there right now. And so by doing this, we are actually pivoting the baseball and softball fields about 90 degrees, which in turn provides proper solar orientation of those fields and maximizes safety on our entire property. Currently, home plate for the baseball field is right across midfield of our rectangular turf field at the track. So we're currently faced with a lot of challenges where any foul ball hit right behind the backstop, which is probably 60 to 70% of total foul balls, goes right onto our lacrosse field in the spring. Because of this and the safety measure, we have to take into consideration we can't play baseball and lacrosse games at the same time. Also, in our current environment, the right field line of our baseball field is about 250 feet from the foul line of our softball field. So if a ball is hit 275 and more or so on the run, it will go into our softball field currently and stop the games that are happening there. The configuration, again, I think I give a lot of credit at the time, made sense because we didn't have lacrosse. We didn't have that program when the design was implemented on our current state of outside. Because the need of that rectangle for the 100+ lacrosse kids in the spring, by pivoting this and creating the track and creating the artificial turf field, we are actually enhancing our facility immensely because now we are minimizing any ball crossovers, if you will, going into other areas. The only concerning area would be the right field line. And that area, we've talked with the engineers about putting a 20-foot fence up there, kind of like a little Fenway, if you will, that would require a ball to be hit approximately 340 feet to actually go into the track area. So we are completely minimizing the risk of safety within this current property by doing it this way. By also pivoting home plate of baseball and home plate of softball, we are now increasing our green space between the two fields. So we are maximizing, by sharing the outfield, we are maximizing how much grass area is available. And in this drawing, we intentionally put 2 extra rectangular fields for practices for soccer in the fall, field hockey in the fall, and then the alternative lacrosse teams as well, because the turf field would not be able to provide practice for every team every day. By doing that, we are now increasing our grass space readily available for all our programs. So whether it's PE classes, whether it's any team in the afternoon, it gives us an environment that we can coexist and have a softball, a baseball, a girls lacrosse game all happening at the same time, really kind of bolstering the afternoon here at our school. But one, we do it with safety measures in place, and 2, we're on a non-game day, we're able to maximize our practice environment out there as well. By doing all this work and shifting all this dirt, we are actually recreating a level playing surface out there for the entire area, minus the turf field. You know, so the baseball and softball field, which areas are not level at this point, just from wear and tear and overall years of just ground movement. By doing this, we are now actually creating brand new softball, brand new baseball, brand new lacrosse, brand new field hockey fields, in addition to our artificial turf field. So we literally, from the bus loop through Co Drive to the facility building, are creating an entirely new athletic complex. And I know, speaking directly with baseball families and softball families, you know, that's one thing we're not trying to overlook, because they're not necessarily getting a new track or getting the turf field, which financially is a larger part of this project, but they truly are getting brand new fields in this process. And I know they're thoroughly excited about it. And I think it's our best bang for our buck, because we are creating the entire area is getting an overhaul and a facelift. So that's why we're really excited about it. And the timeline and process is one that Todd's going to talk about.
Okay, so where do we go from where have we been and where do we go from here? Obviously, in December, the school board finalized its proposed warrant, which is currently the language of Article 3. From that point on, we're going to spend the next couple of months making sure all of our permits and everything are in place. Last year, we had all of the permits ready to go, so that in the event that the warrant passed, we were ready to go, literally had it a shovel-ready project. We intend to do the same thing this year, so we will be ready optimistically, when we get the yes vote, to be able to start the project. Groundbreaking would start in early April. It would obviously mean the spring season would be somewhat disrupted, but Corey has already had conversations with many of the local youth rec departments to identify places that we could play games, such as Little River Park for baseball and in Madbury Field and so forth, to be able to continue to keep things going. But we would start construction in early April with the idea that the project would be done by mid-October. In my fondest dream, we would be hosting a home tournament soccer game on our turf field next fall, which would be a really exciting thing. So that's the timeline. In terms of just the cost breakdown, total cost of what's been outlined here is $2.2 million. Again, we've already mentioned that $300,000 has already been raised and/or appropriated from the school district in the expendable trust fund, which is $300,000. So that's sitting there waiting to be used. And to be clear, the expendable trust fund has to be used for the construction of a track. That's what it's for. In addition to the $300,000, there will be $400,000 that is going to be allocated from the health insurance lawsuit. Similar funds were used last year to construct the Mohammed School cafeteria. And then the final component is the $1.5 million bond, for which the first year's interest payment is a little over $22,000. And just to give you an idea, down the road, second year, it's about $160,000, and that's the highest it gets, and it gradually goes down from there. We'd be happy to take, actually, the website, orbobcats.com, is a place where you can go to get additional information if you'd like. We're happy to take questions.
So if you have questions, I know this is a little formal and perhaps a little uncomfortable, but we are videotaping this, and it'll air on our TV station. If you have a question, if you wouldn't mind going to the microphone so it's picked up in the videotaping, we'd greatly appreciate that. So we are open for questions and appreciate anything you have to offer. And please introduce yourself as you go to the microphone.
William Hall, Durham. Not so much a question as just a comment. As you've pointed out, the student that invested in the school district in after-school activities does better in school. And in this electronic age, where too many kids spend too much time indoors and on the couch, I don't look at this as any type of a question at all. We've got to get our kids outside. We've got to get them engaged. And the more they can do with their friends and develop, whether it's teamwork or cheering them on or just participating outside, I think is terribly, terribly important. There just aren't the opportunities outside that there were when I was growing up. And this is a good way to answer that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, I appreciate that.
Others?
Robert Sullivan. I live in Durham, and I'm a parent of students in the district. I wanted to thank the board and all the administration who put a lot of work into getting the project to where it is, and also a lot of the supporters in the past. There's an excited, enthusiastic group of parents who are really fired up about this and are willing to vote, and I think willing to invest in this project. I build things for a living. I've looked at this project. It makes sense as far as how it sits on the land. It's a smart project. It's not excessive. It's not overreaching for extra fancy things like you see in our world. We're getting the basics here, which is a field to play on, a track, and a reorientation that makes it safe. If you're an elementary school parent and a middle school parent, this is your kid's future. If you're a senior at the high school, you're not going to see the benefits of it. But for the parents who are elementary and middle school parents, you really want to pay attention to this and get out and vote, because it's what your kids will someday play on. Sometimes you build things and they don't get used. This track will be used. This field will be used the day it's done. You're going to pull the tape away from the construction guys, and people are going to flood on this thing. It will be used. Like many things aren't. I think it's going to be, we're going to be kind of wrestling with who can get it next. The other thing that I look at on this project, it's another big version of buying local. We export a lot of dollars out of our school district right now. We export them to UNH, we export them to other schools. We're going to keep that money in the community. We're going to keep our parents in the community so they have more time to spend with their kids. We're talking about shifting school hours. This supports that because we don't have to drive places. So there's a lot of ways that this really supports what the district is trying to do with other things. And I think it's a great project. And I appreciate the school board putting this up for the voters, and I think also people have a chance to look at it, at other assets. This other selling of Orchard Drive, I think, makes a lot of sense. The school board's looking at things that we can't really use and are finding ways to bring those back to the school property. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Brian Kavanagh, I live in Durham. I just have a question about the maintenance of the field. It says on the pamphlet here that the fields would have superior durability and drainage with very little necessary upkeep. Are there any funds that are being reserved for maintenance of the field?
There's no funds being reserved. However, working with Jim Rizicki and his budget of facility man hours, right now we're spending about $26,000 a year to maintain that rectangular area that would be the turf field. By doing the turf field, and that includes lining, mowing, any expense in labor, and so on and so forth, sod. Within that expense, we look at it as a turf field because the rubbers are in the turf. Approximately once or twice a month, depending on how much usage, there's a tool for approximately $3,500 that you put on the backside of a gator or a lawnmower. And if you can imagine like a toothbrush, if you will, kind of like a Zamboni.
Right.
It goes up and down one time, and what that does is that shifts all the infill to kind of level back out on the playing surface so that the grass has a consistent level upon installation. By doing that once or twice a month, that is sustaining the grass of the blades to stay up in the air, which is the life of the turf field. Right now, warranties are set for about 8 years per turf field. The local fields in this area with the same climate are getting between 12 and 15 years for those facilities.
But will anything be done to maintain the underbedding of the field? So my concern here is that there was an article recently in the New York Times that was about concussions that athletes get when their heads hit the field.
Sure.
So basically, it said that there's I have the article right here. If you just Google artificial turf field and concussion, it's the first hit. So I'm just concerned that we put all this money in and we get the bond passed, and then years down the road, the field hardens, someone gets a concussion, and the district is
thank you for bringing that point up. So part of the 8-year warranty with the manufacturers, they come and test the field. And so they come and they bring equipment to test the G-Max of the field so that you're still duplicating the bounce off the rubber, which is a tremendous advantage in these products that you can't have with the typical grass field because every field's so inconsistent with their product. So they'll come out on an annual basis and test that and test multiple areas across the field. High volume usage areas like in front of a goal mouth, and then also spotty areas throughout the turf. That is part of the warranty package that they provide. And so that would be watched very closely. Another great part of this is this material really doesn't freeze, whereas our fields freeze, generally frozen still in April, definitely are frozen in November. So when there's a play, whether it be in soccer or lacrosse, and someone's falling on the surface, I feel extremely confident that this playing surface will be much safer for the actual fall, considering our current environment out there.
All right, so that includes adding the crumb rubber back.
So when they come back in, if we are losing it for some reason, I wouldn't see a real reason that would happen, but upon installation, they actually leave you 3 to 4 64-ounce tubs of tire crumb rubber in case you ever need extra, in case it goes missing. I'm sorry, not tire crumb rubber, EPDM, same product. My apologies, definitely not tire crumb rubber. So they'll leave that, but in the event that the field becomes compromised, they come in and will replace that. The other side of the product is the drainage underneath the surface, which I know UNH had a problem with a year and a half ago.
Right.
A lot of those science with the issues they're having now was about 9 to 10 years ago with the drainage underneath. That is also included in the warranty package. So any kind of issues with drainage, that would be resolved by the company.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sure.
And I would also, one of the things that I think you have to keep in mind, because of the high volume of use that our field gets, even if we went and did this whole project and then put a regular grass field on top of it again, it would only be a matter of years before we would be back to that level of compaction that we have now, where it's a very almost cement-like surface in some places because it gets so much packing down. So as Corey pointed out, I think it's important to keep in mind what our current situation is and just how much safer and how much better this will be given the volume of use we have to have on this kind of postage stamp sized lot.
Hi, I'm Maria Barth. I'm from Lee. My husband was part of the ad hoc committee, and wanted to be here tonight, but he's home with our dog that was badly hurt lately. So I just want to say, I've said it before, I'm cheap. I don't like sports. But I do totally support this project for several reasons. Bill Hall was right. All the research says get kids out there. They do better in school. They're less likely to get involved in risky behavior, and I approve of that. I am also an environmentalist, so I'm big about the upgrades of the runoff and less bad stuff on the fields. But most of all, my boys were at Oyster River in the late 70s, so I have memories that are older than yours, Todd. And we had a horrible, horrible accident on the soccer field. And that particular safety situation was, of course, corrected. But I'm big on safety, and I'm big on my personal moral liability. I would find it extremely hard to vote against something that's going to correct the configuration of the fields and make it safer. So for me to vote no on something that I know is dangerous, just for me personally, would be against everything that I stand for. So I'm going to support this, and I think the board has done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, seeing that there are no other comments, could I have a motion to adjourn this portion of the public hearing? Denise?
Motion to adjourn this public hearing.
Okay, moved by Denise, second by Al. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so this public hearing is closed. Could I have a motion to enter into a public hearing on the proposed 2016-2017 budget? Al?
I'll make a motion to enter in a public hearing for the 2016-2017 budget.
Moved by Al, seconded by Denise. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, 7 in favor. We're in public hearing on the budget. Dr. Morse?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this section is related to the school budget as proposed by the school board. We'll review the board's goals, what we've accomplished in the past year, our enrollment projections, and then we'll give you some financial information, and then very quickly go through the warrant articles that the community will be seeing when we hit deliberative session and when we vote. So one of the most important parts of a school board's job is to keep their eye on the academic vision of the school district. And this particular school board has done a tremendous job. Since I've been superintendent, we have adopted a strategic plan. They've been very clear on their annual goals and expectations. You just heard one of those goals being presented by the assistant superintendent and athletic director. And really, the proposed budget is a reflection of that strategic plan and that vision. So the idea behind having a strategic plan and vision is to be able to project to the community exactly what is important, what the school board has decided is the focus for a given school year, and then to have a budget that reflects those priorities. So for our school board, they adopted the idea that they were going to have a 5-year capital plan. We've been noted Jim Rozicki as our facilities director several times tonight. He's the author of that capital plan, and the board adopted it. We continue to study the issue of our middle school. Our middle school is the oldest facility we have, and we struggle with maintenance and upkeep just because it is as old as it is. And we also struggle with its ability to provide the academic setting that we want for our middle school students. So we're in a second year of a conversation around the middle school, and that was the goal for this year, to look at options. You know, what options exist for the middle school, from another renovation to replacement to looking at different configurations like K through 8 schools. That process is in gear. You'll hear later about the goal around full-day kindergarten. That is a goal the board adopted 2 school years ago and has been resolute about. This has been an 8-year effort, And thanks to the focus of the school board, we're at the place where we're going to be able to implement it inside this budget. We're in the process of implementing a new K-5 math program, a very exciting commitment by our K-5 educators to coordinate our efforts across the district. Historically, each school has kind of done their own thing. When we got to this work, we said, no, we need to be on the same page. And not only are we on the same page between the two elementary schools, we're also on the same page in the middle school. So thanks to our elementary and middle school leadership. And also thanks to the efforts of our classroom teachers who have worked so hard to make this program work this year. We are in the process of looking at a late start or a flexible start to our high school and middle school programs. Again, it's a conversation that the board felt was prudent based on the fact that there were community members who really thought that the research supported this endeavor, and so the board is in the process of receiving feedback from our staff and community regarding the idea of a later start for our high school. The research behind it is that adolescent brains develop differently and over time, and sleep becomes more and more critical as you enter your teenage years, and so we're looking at options that would allow our adolescents perhaps to have a later start. You just heard the presentation on Article 3, so I don't need to go there other than to say, to reinforce what the Assistant Superintendent and Athletic Director said, which is these athletic field configurations are critical to safety and maximum usage for our students. 72% of our children in the high school alone are participating in some athletic activity. We're a school known for our academic performance, but our student athletes are out there competing well against other school systems, and these fields are long overdue. And then in terms of where we are as a school system, we know that we have high academic standards for our students. We know our parents have high academic standards for our students, which raises the issue of, are we doing everything to make sure that our students are well mentally as well as academically? And so that became a goal for our school board, and that committee has been working throughout this school year. You know, some of the highlights, and I'll go through these very, very quickly, you know, we as a state implemented a new assessment, and Oyster River performed extremely well on this new assessment. One of the stories I tell is Tom Newkirk, our chair, mentioned to me in a conversation that New Hampshire is ranking, you know, one of the highest school systems as a state in the country. And he just gave me another report tonight documenting that. You know, whether we're first, second, or third, the point is that as a state, New Hampshire does extremely well. And within the state, Oyster River is one of our higher performing public school systems. So it's something for us to be very proud of, but it's also, you know, a combination of efforts. It's a combination of our staff, it's a combination of our parents, and it's the commitment of 3 communities to have an outstanding school system. And those 3 factors together result in the kind of student performance we see, and something that we all should be extremely proud of. So, going on, what we also have done is reinvigorated support services in this district. Doris Demers is sitting here. We've had an increase in our food program participation in some buildings by over 50%. Now, this is a program where we're now bringing in local foods. This is a program where children are gravitating to a nutritious lunch, and this is due to strong leadership and a commitment by the Sustainability Committee, as well as our school board, to have a program that we can be proud of. Interesting fact, as that program has improved, the amount of dollars supported by it, by the taxpayer, has actually gone down by $20,000. So a credit to our food service program. When we talk about I talked a little bit about math already, so I'll go off and recognize the middle school was recognized as a NELMS Spotlight School, New England League of Middle Schools. That's an independent study of Our middle school, compared to other middle schools in New England, the spotlight status is reserved for a select few schools, so credit to Jay and his staff for the work that they've been able to achieve to be recognized by NELMS. Another aspect that we alluded to, and I think if we went back to Mr. Hall's presentation about kids being participants in extracurricular activities, that starts at our middle school. Mr. Richard and his staff offer numerous opportunities at the end of the school year that keep kids engaged in their studies, but also believing in Oyster River Middle School as a special place. In fact, yesterday, the entire middle school walked to UNH to watch a basketball game. Talk about creating a climate of inclusiveness and recognizing not everything we have to do every single minute is math, science, English, or social studies. That there's a place in a middle school environment for that kind of connectiveness as an entire school. Our music program, again, due to the commitment of our teachers and our staff, our board has increased dramatically in participation. Our strings program is really through the roof. We were blessed by hiring an amazing strings teacher, but it impacted the entire program. Our high school program in terms of band is up dramatically. Our middle school participation is up dramatically, so it was an incredible domino effect. The test results in the upper grades are just as strong as they were in the lower grades. So again, a credit to our district for the work we do. When we get to the high school, we have a consistent record of excellence. When we get to the high school, we have to remember that the work that's happening at the high school is a direct result of the work that happened kindergarten through 8th grade. So we get to the high school and we have 5 consecutive years of over 80% placement in college. The national average is about 63%. We have a consistent record of 100% graduation rate at the high school, just an amazing accomplishment. We have been ranked by niche.com as the 5th best high school in New Hampshire. So again, when we talk about Oyster River pride, it's not us touting and puffing our chests out. These are recognitions that we've got from outside entities like NELMS and like niche.com. This is one of my proudest things, and I know that people who are into athletics like to see wins on the board. The thing that I'm most proud of as a superintendent is when a high school gets ranked with the Best Sportsmanship Award. That tells us that the ladies and gentlemen who are playing athletics in our high school are being recognized by fellow high schools. And that's something that we all should be taking home and saying, that doesn't happen every day. It's an amazing accomplishment by the high school. And we're beginning to keep a record now. This is the first time we're putting this out. 74 college courses worth of college credit were achieved by our high school kids while they're in high school. We will see that number grow. We're going to keep a track record of that number. What that does for the students is it builds their confidence that they're college ready. What it does for the parents is it costs them far less for their high school student to take a college course while they're in high school, far less. The possibility is there that we could have Oyster River High School graduates leave with a semester, 2 semesters worth of college credits in their pocket as they go off to college. So that's another exciting accomplishment that we all should take note of. Talked about the 100% graduation rate, but I also want to talk about the fact that that includes all of our children with disabilities. So in some school systems, you'll see a dramatic difference in graduation rates between our youngsters who have disabilities and our youngsters who don't. In Oyster River, there is no difference. Again, an incredible piece of data to share with colleagues and friends. Maybe you can turn it into a Christmas trivia game next year. What high school has 100% graduation of their special needs population? and we're in it. 46% of our special needs kids go off to a 4-year college, 25% elect a 2-year or 3-year technical school, and 4% enter the military. We know what's happening with our special needs population because we have a great director, and Catherine Plord. We have great educators who work for her, and our regular ed educators are committed to these youngsters just as strongly as any of the youngsters that they serve. We were reviewed by again, this is an outside agency, this is the state of New Hampshire this time, coming in, and they reviewed the special ed program in Oyster River, and they found us 100% in compliance. Only 3.5 years ago, we were less than 50% compliant. It's great leadership, great commitment by staff. And we survey our parents, and our parents are appreciative of the program that we have. Talked about the highlights in nutrition already, highlights in transportation. We received a $55,000 grant that we were able to combine with $20,000 worth of local money and buy an additional bus. Our buses were awarded the NHSTA and HHDOT, Department of Transportation, Annual Safety Award for staff members with 10, 15, and 25 years of safe driving. What more could you ask from a driver? So as we continue to talk about the district, we shouldn't leave out facilities. We've heard about the great job that Jim Rizicki and staff do. We no longer use any harmful chemicals in the district to clean, to fertilize. We are using safe products all the time. And this goes back to the global commitment by the school district on sustainability. So everything we do, we're thinking about how do we do this in a way that we would do it better and safer. Response time on work orders is down to a 24-hour experience. We continue to replace lighting so it's efficient, the outside lights this year, but previous years it was all internal lights. And we continue to whittle down a $4.5 million facilities study documentation of us being behind in terms of getting the work done that we need to get done. We still have $2.5 million of that left, and that reflects a couple of the warrant article requests later. So we've whittled it down over the last 3 years. We continue to address the important issues in terms of life safety or ADA compliance. Those are done, and now we're working on the other issues, part of which are, a lot of which left are the middle school. So that goes back to that issue. In technology, what we have done is focused in on sustainability again. We replaced over 100 copiers and printers in the district with about 3 dozen copier printers. Far more efficient, use less energy, and have a built-in feature software that if you go to send something to the printer and you don't pick it up by midnight that day, it never gets printed. So we're saving paper. So the print management system on that is truly amazing. A credit to Josh Olstead and his IT staff. All of this teacher and student computers have been updated, so that part of our program is caught up. We're at the device replacement stage. When I say devices, we're talking about projectors and other devices that support the technology. And we have, as of this year, IT support staff in both elementary schools, at the middle school, and because of the way the high school is configured, also there. In terms of where we are as a district, we adhere to the strategic plan, though this year, as I talk about the budget, you'll see we had to kind of go into stasis. The capital improvement plan is in progress, as I've alluded to. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit about enrollment because invariably people have questions about where we are as a district in terms of enrollment. So again, I go back to when the board hired me and everybody was saying we would be below 2,000 students in the next 3 years. The sky was falling. We were going to be having to lay off staff. Life as we know it was going to end. And, so here we are 3.5 years later. The latest enrollment projections from our long-range planning committee is we'll be above 2,000 students for the next 5 years. A big turnaround in our enrollment, and that is largely due to the Barrington tuition agreement, which has been an amazing tool for the district in terms of maintaining the incredible programming we offer at the high school and making sure our classes were full. To give you a sense of the enrollment in terms of school, this is based on October 1st, because that's the official enrollment date. Massway had 285 students, Mohammed 382 students, the middle school 674 students, and the high school 714 students. One of the questions I get asked is, well, how does enrollment look over time by town? Because the district is supported by enrollment and evaluation of the towns. And so this gives you a 5-year view of what's happening in Durham, Lee, and Madbury, and now, because of the tuition agreement, Barrington, and then a few others as they come into the district. But it gives you a history, and you can see sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down, but overall, pretty steady for the next 5 years. The question came up at an earlier presentation, you know, how much money have we brought in from Barrington and how much have we spent on instruction? Because part of the arrangement we made with the communities is that we would try to make sure the Barrington money was used largely to offset taxes. So I put this slide together to give you a sense that in the last 3 years, we've hired 2.9 staff members. 2.9 over 3 years. And that was in math and science and world language part-time and business part-time. In that same period, so that's about 2.9 would say is about $270,000 of Barrington money being spent on staff. In that same time period, we've brought in over $3 million in tuition from Barrington. So less than 10% of the money we're receiving from Barrington is being used to add staff, meaning over 90% is being used to offset taxes. To put another way, if we didn't have the Barrington agreement, the board would have been looking at how to lay off staff and/or raise taxes to maintain programming. Because of the Barrington agreement, that's not the case. So every budget has decreases. This one was lowered by $45,745 on the high school bond. So that bond decreases every year. And this is the story on the strategic plan. We're adhering to it, but we needed to make some concessions this year. So the board agreed to, instead of increasing technology by $100,000, which was in the strategic plan, we actually decreased it by $15,000. In terms of the facilities, that was supposed to increase by $200,000 based on the strategic plan. We actually had to decrease it by $25,000. And in terms of bus purchases, we had planned on 3, but we decided that 2 was okay for this year, decreasing that budget by $85,000. So it could sound like I was talking out of both sides of my mouth, so I want to just be clear that over the last 3 years, the board has built the capacity in all 3 of these budgets to do the work that we want done, and basically by somewhat flat funding, a little bit decrease, we'll still be able to maintain our efforts. We just won't be able to increase our efforts. And again, that's due to quality leadership by the directors who said we could make these recommendations and not substantially interfere with our work moving forward, and I want to give them the credit that they're due. This whole budget presentation could have been this slide. The entire increase in the budget is due to a 16.8% increase in health insurance, which is about $600,000. And then when we look at all the negotiated increases in terms of union contracts, that's about $600,000. There are no new staff in this budget. This staff has no new staff. This budget has no new staff, none. This is really a budget that's driven by 2 issues: contracts and health insurance. And in terms of health insurance, I just want to say that this board has been diligent for 3.5 years at working in every single union contract to lower the impact on taxpayers. Our employees now pay more on pharmacy costs. Our employees pay more on co-pays when they go to the doctors. Our employees are choosing lesser expensive plans because more expensive plans have been eliminated. But the bottom line is, in this particular year, all of those efforts for this proposed budget go to naught because our usage is up. We have used over $5 million worth of health insurance benefits this year. That means our employees or their family members needed health insurance this year. Last year, our increase was 0 in health insurance. Our employees were relatively healthy. You move forward one school year, our employees and other families, not as healthy as they were, and therefore our health insurance went up. So it's a usage-based model. When we look at the overall breakdown of the budget, that's what this slide shows. I hope it's clear on TV because these are the kind of slides that I hate because everything is tiny. But the worst case scenario on this budget, if every warrant passes, you're looking at a 2.9% increase in the budget, 2.9. So well within the board's stated goal. And this budget has taken so many permutations over the course of their work with it. You know, at different places, we were at different times, and then, you know, towards the end, we get the health insurance impact, and all the work that they did goes out the window, and they had to reconfigure and rethink through the budget. And in the end, I think the budget that they're proposing for your consideration is incredibly reasonable, given the fact that we had $600,000 worth of increase in health insurance, 2.9% if all warrants pass. So I do want to stay here for a second. This is the estimated impact to the towns. So I characterize this particular slide, as Sue Caswell, my business manager, cringes, as a sort of back-of-the-napkin slide. She is an incredibly gifted business manager, and she takes all the data that she has, and she comes up and she tries to estimate what the impact is on our 3 towns. This is where we were a year ago. We thought that the taxes in Lee and Durham would go up. We thought that the taxes in Madbury would go up. Everything was going to go up a little bit. It looked like a pretty reasonable impact. The taxes are solidified in October, so this slide doesn't become real until next October. And what happened was the taxes in Durham went down. The taxes in Lee went down. They're pretty doggone happy. But the taxes in Madbury went up equal to the amount that the taxes went down in Durham and Lee. So they took it full frontal. And so I caution everybody, when you look at this particular slide, look at the word estimate. It is an estimate. And so if everything passed, we would see an impact in Durham of 59 cents per thousand. In Lee, I can't even read it now because my eyes are going.
50 cents.
76 cents. 76 cents, and in Madbury, $1.07. But again, I want to caution, please, please know that this is a very gross estimate a year before it actually is real. When we look at past increases, just to kind of give you a history, you've seen a district over the last 5 years that's been incredibly frugal and very mindful of the academic performance of students, but its impact on the community. So you can see, if you looked at that and you averaged it, you'd be looking at an increase of someplace in the 1.34 range in terms of percentages. This particular year, we're looking at 2.9 if all warrants pass. So very quickly, the warrants. So you've heard about Article 3. Article 4 is straightforward. The community's seen these articles year in and year out. This is the negotiated increase for the RESPA support group, our union that covers our support staff. And next year's increase negotiated by the board is $38,937. That's part of the proposed budget. And again, our board negotiators did a great job of holding the line. No union, including health insurance, had an increase that was higher than 3%. So this particular unit was less than 3%. inclusive of all factors, not just salary, but health insurance, longevity, everything. When we go to Article 5, this is the warrant article that's asking for permission to sell the property down at Orchard Drive. Now, I will tell you, in 1997, this article passed. The problem with 1997 is it didn't tell us what we were supposed to do with the money. So we're coming back to you as voters and asking you again for permission to sell this property, but then to direct the funds from this sale to the Facilities Development Capital Reserve Fund. And if you go back to my conversation about how far we're behind the 8 ball in terms of capital needs, this would help in filling that need. Now, we used a figure of $500,000. Realistically, we think that the property is probably going to generate about $300,000, but we wanted to use a number that was big enough so we could capture if it was 305, or if we're lucky and somebody comes in and says, we'll give you 375,000. So we used a high enough number so that whatever reasonably it would sell for, we would be able to capture it. When we get to Article 6, it's really for us to appropriate up to $500,000, again, for the Facilities Development Capital Reserve Fund from year-end undesignated fund balance or revenue, unanticipated revenue. So this does not impact taxes. It's basically saying if there's money left at the end of the year, the voters are saying it's okay to use it on these capital needs. Again, remembering that we're $2.5 million worth of capital needs that still haven't been addressed. When we get to Article 7, it's to establish a non-lapsing equipment revolving fund in technology. So this district has done really great things in the last several years to support children in poverty. For us in this district, it's 8% of the population. So it's a group of kids that would be easy for us not to see. Academically, we see them. And in the last 3 years, we've seen them through the 60 hours of hunger by having a community-based program to provide them food. Our principals do fundraising so that if a child needs sneakers, they can pull it out of a fundraising account and support a child in need, or mittens, or overcoats. This particular warrant allows us to create this fund so that we can help children in poverty have the technology they need. So it would allow us to, for example, gift them 5-year-old iPads as we're replacing them with the latest model, and the older ones don't service us as a district anymore. They could certainly service a youngster. It allows us to generate up to $2,000 from the sale of older equipment, which we currently send to recyclers. So if we could sell an iPad for $25, that would be about the market value for one that's 5 or 6 years old. Then we can put those monies in this account. And then as a youngster comes to the principal and, looks like they have a particular need, thumb drive, or, maybe something more substantial than that, they can turn and say, well, we have this account and we'd like to be able to help you, like we do with mittens, coats, and food. So that's what this is about. It's a small article in terms of money. It's a big one in terms of impact on our kids in poverty. And then finally, our last article, as always, is taking all of the articles before it, laying them out there, adding food service, adding federal funds, and then saying this is all the accounts that the district is proposing spending, and asking the voters for permission to spend it. So the other articles raise it. This article gives us the permission to spend. So that's the overview of the proposed 2016-17 budget. Again, like the previous presentation, we'd ask if you do have questions to go to the microphone, and so it can be recorded for the airing of this at a later date. And we are now open to questions.
Are there comments or questions? Hearing none? Okay.
Just one. Maybe you can clarify. It would appear that your taking in tuition students has been able to augment your full-day kindergarten. Is that correct?
No, actually, the funding of full-day kindergarten is coming, thank you, Bill, for the question, is coming from the reassignment of funds currently in the budget. So, for example, we spend about $140,000 moving kindergarten kids at noontime, bringing morning kids home and picking up afternoon kids and bringing them to school. That $140,000 will be redirected to the academic account, and that will help support full-day K. And then the other way we're doing it, Bill, is by the reduction in the number of elementary students at the upper end of the scale will be down 2 teachers. So we're going to reassign staff to the full-day K. So it's being done by moving money in the budget to support it rather than asking for new money from the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, could I have a motion to close this public hearing? Denise?
I motion to close the public hearing on the proposed 2016-17 budget.
Moved by Denise, is there a second? Seconded by Al, discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. The public hearing on the budget is closed. Okay. So we have school board actions. My understanding, you had the letter from Gordon Graham, our lawyer, is that the board has the option to, at this point, make any raises in any of these amounts. But after this meeting, we no longer can raise money. We can increase these amounts. So I'm assuming that there are no, that closes the window. Legally, we cannot raise any of these amounts after this meeting. Is that clear? Am I correct on that? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Since there's no motion to raise the, what? Sure.
Just a question of clarification in terms of the wording of the warrants we can do after tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, Denise. In your packets, you have modified language around the warrants. The key here is the warrants can't be changed in a substantive way, meaning that you go off in a whole different direction and try to keep the same warrant language. But Sue, you might want to go to the microphone, Sue, as late as today has been in conversation with the state. And in red in your packet, the language in red, the state is recommending we make some minor adjustments for clarity purposes related to these warrants. Sue, do you want to address that?
Sure. After talking with Department of Revenue Association, they came back with some recommendations for better language on your articles. And I think if you read them, several of them make more sense. So I suggest that if you want to make those adjustments, we do so.
And then, Tom, if you want, we can just go through them and read them into the public record so people can hear what the changes are.
So should you do that or should I do that?
Either one of us can.
Why don't you, I have a cold, so
Okay, all righty. So Article 3 largely remained the same, but right in the middle in red, the department has suggested that we add the language with $400,000 to come from the June 30th unassigned fund balance available July 1st, 2016, and/or the Facility Development Capital Reserve Expendable Trust Fund, and they struck out the next line. Basically, what they've done is reconfigured the next 2 lines into that 1 line. I think it's far clearer. When Sue and I looked at it, we thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You may recall throughout all of our conversations, we always wonder why the attorneys give us such nonsensical language. I think the department has got to a place where they also think it's nonsensical, and they're trying to help us clean up, for clarity purposes, what we're trying to communicate to the community. So I thought that was a really very good change.
Okay. So do you want to go through all the changes, then we can approve the changes as a block, or if people want to have individual discussions, we could do that.
Yep. Be glad to, Tom.
Okay.
So then, no changes in Article 4. When we get to Article 5, again, the change is relatively modest, and it's in red, and it's towards the last sentence. and it basically says that up to $500,000 from the sale of this property to be placed into the Facilities Development Capital Reserve Fund. They're basically recommending striking out established in March 1999 and amended in March 2014 as unnecessary language. When we go to Article 6, they strike the word shall and insert the words to see if, and then they add will vote to raise and appropriate. And then they continue this sum to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2016. And I think this is really a real big improvement. No amount to be raised by taxation. So that really clarifies the fact that we're not trying to raise taxes to support this article. And when I saw that, I thought, why didn't we think of that? But thank goodness Sue was with talking to the state, even if it was late in the game. The state is really excited about, actually, we're the first district to submit their warrants, and they have a new person at the state, and she was really excited to be working with Sue because she wants to make sure that she's helping all the districts, which is a new focus for the department. Under Article 7, the state wanted us to say, further to raise and appropriate the sum of, so just adding the words the sum of, and they wanted to add withdrawals from the revolving fund will be made at monthly intervals as needed, so they added the language withdrawals from the revolving fund. And then on Article 8, I think this also has been so helpful because we have klutzed around with this article year in and year out, and basically we had put all the numbers in the middle of the article, and what she had said is insert the word default on the operating part and governing body as opposed to the district, so those weren't that big a deal. It's the last sentence that I thought was the major change that really helped clarify the article. Note Fund 10 is $40,950,403. Basically, she's taken all those numbers in the middle of the article and brought them down to the end of the article, and I think that makes all the difference in terms of the legalese and trying to add clarity to these. So I thought the state was incredibly helpful. Sue thought the state was incredibly helpful. None of the changes substantially changed the warrants, and so both Sue and I strongly encourage the board to adopt these minor changes.
Okay. So could we have a motion either to approve these individually, or if people, unless people want to talk about them individually, could have a motion to approve them as a block? It seems to me that these don't change intent, they don't change amount, they just add clarity. Denise?
I just have one question for Sue, I guess. It's on Article 6, and it says no amount to be raised by taxation, but technically that money was raised by taxation, it just was raised in,
Prior year, correct.
Year. So
Yeah.
is that a problem?
No, that's their recommendation.
Okay.
They just recommend putting that in there.
Okay.
Okay. Al?
I'd like to make a motion to approve, as a block, the changes to the warrant articles as described by Dr. Morris.
Moved by Al, seconded by Denise. Is there further discussion on this? I think these are real improvements. Any? I can't see everybody. Are we all okay? Okay, ready to vote? All those in favor of this motion to accept this amended language, please raise your hands. 7 in favor. This language is approved. I assume that's the end of our action. So going forward, the board cannot raise any of these amounts. These amounts are set. This closes that window. Okay. So could I have a motion to adjourn? Maria?
So moved.
Moved by Maria. Is there a second? Seconded by Al. Discussion? No. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 in favor. The meeting is adjourned.